Hey, everybody, welcome to this very first episode of Electrofans Pro Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Pajak. This is going to be a series of interviews and think tank discussions with movers and shakers from around the electronic music world, producers, DJs, label heads, promoters, and event organizers. We are delighted to have as our very first guest, LA singer-songwriter EL.SY. EL.SY's music covers a nice array of styles, ranging from folk, electro, to dance pop. She's been called eclectic and new bohemian, and her music evokes the artistic pathway of the life journey she's taken so far, expressed through words, melodies, and song. Her debut album, Wanderer, was released on New Year's Day of this year. EL.SY, welcome to Pro Talk. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I really like that intro. That was a surprise, but you hit it spot on.
Our guest number one. Okay, first question, jumping right in. Tell us about how you got started making music. Did you have any formal training or come from a musical family, anything like that?
Yeah, so this is a good one. Like thinking back, I've always been singing, and I started writing songs probably when I was in my teenage years. But yeah, I would say I come from a musical family, not necessarily professionally or anything like that, but yeah, I remember. So I really got started, when I was young. There's like recordings of me singing, all the time, and actually I think the Disney was like a big part
Oh, really?
of, yeah,
Wow,
exactly, of me. Like I had the sing along tapes and I would just like play them over and over again, ad nauseum. And
that's
yeah, I
interesting.
was, I was actually reminiscing with my family the other day about it, and they were like, "Oh man, we kind of regretted getting you those." But
Anyone,
yeah,
any
so
ones in particular, Disney name
oh,
titles?
I mean, all of them. I mean, actually, this is really funny. I've been like singing songs from Mulan
Hmm.
recently. Like
Hmm.
I keep singing, there's the one that's like, I'll make a man out of you. I have no idea why, but I just will go around singing lyrics from that. So
So, like, how old were you
that's,
here when you think you started singing
I,
along with Disney stuff?
oh, I mean, yeah, I grew up in like the prime Disney era in the 90s. So, um, yeah, I must have been like 4 or 5 or
Oh,
so.
wow, really young, yeah.
Yeah, really young. So that's like where it all started. And then yeah, my parents would play. We did a lot of road trips, so that was also where I was just like constantly singing. Celine Dion was like a big one too.
Oh, wow, okay.
So definitely like some big female vocalists. Yeah,
Power
and
singers, huh? Power
power
singers.
singers, totally, totally. And then again, like in my teenage years, I just, yeah, for some reason, like I can't even really pinpoint exactly when it happened, but I just like became obsessed with music, and I sort of like deep down knew I was going to do it. And again, being growing up in an Asian household, and actually this is AAPI month, so this is perfect.
Yeah,
Growing up
that's
in an
right.
Asian household, yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, parents have always been like supportive in general, but definitely still very much like you're gonna get a job that's like you're gonna pursue the academic like path, and then you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
music is not necessarily, at least at the time, and still today, I do think that there's a lot of things in the industry that have opened up possibilities, and that's actually probably why now I've really started to pursue this. But yeah, so I going back to your question, like how I got into it, I just started like writing, and over the years, I think songwriting has really become the the outlet and medium that I actually connect most to. So I started out as a singer, and then I really started writing, and like I listened to so many different types of music, and definitely like electronic music, dance music. I think like in the 2000s, like just like the huge boon in electronic music, like there's definitely some tracks that really inspire me. I think that's the great thing. And there's always like a female vocal that's just like, yeah, so that's something too that um I really am actually currently working on. And then a lot of my other stuff as well, as I would say it's kind of like indie pop, with some influences, as you mentioned, in like R&B and folk and whatnot. So I just grew up listening to so many things, and it's really like how I process things, and like, you listen to an album over and over and over again. And I really think that a lot of learning music and learning how to make music is like, someone actually, a friend told me this once. They said like good singers are actually good listeners. And so
Hmm.
I definitely feel that way, because you know I wouldn't say that I was like a voracious like, I definitely know people who are like, like the connoisseurs, the people who just like know every single like eclectic band and listen to all of them. Because for me,
Yeah.
that's like overload. Like that's too much. So
Yeah.
I really like to explore, but also like really like get deep into a specific artist or whatnot that I'm
Hmm.
listening to at the time.
So you've always been kind of your musical background, taste, and influences have always been kind of wide range of styles since you were a kid, huh, I guess. Huh?
Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah, which
definitely.
is actually my next question. So, who would you say are some of your main musical influences as an artist?
Yeah, so I would say I'm probably actually in the last like 10 years or so or more of like the people that I just like really latched on to. So I would say like there's this artist Ma, she's a Danish artist, and she like her big song was Lean On with Diplo, and I can't remember who else was in that, but it was with Diplo. So that was like a huge one. But like before that, even I had been introduced to like her first album, and I just completely love it. So a lot of like Nordics actually, and actually it's funny. A lot of the record that I just put out, I worked on with friends in Sweden. So I really love
Hmm.
that sound. And then another artist, actually LA based, her name is Banks. So she's got more of like that R&B soul kind of vibe, but she also worked with a bunch of producers like here and also in London who kind of have like there's like this gritty synthy kind of dark pop vibe, which I have a song called Shadow that's kind of in that style as well. So I'd say definitely her stuff has been a huge influence. Yeah, and like and in terms of actually, there's a dance artist I absolutely love. And one day, if you're if you ever watch this, but Elderbrook. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know Elderbrook, but he like did a I think his big break potentially was like this song called Coca-Cola, or with cola, not Coca-Cola, but cola.
Wow, I don't
And it
know
was maybe it was Coca-Cola, but it was with camel fat. And
that. Okay.
yeah, but Elderbrook's like other stuff, it's just like really really vibey. And so in some of the I have like one track that's kind of dancey, and I definitely drew from that. And then yeah, there's like folk bands, like there's this one called The Head and the Heart that I really love.
Yeah,
um
I can definitely detect like a lot of folk influence from your music. We'll play a couple tracks for our Electrofans
awesome.
listeners a little bit later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Sorry. And so
Yeah.
you go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So those are some definite like favorites. I think there's certainly going to be more. Oh, and another one. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I draw inspiration from like a lot of people. Like even just like there's modern artists like Billie Eilish
Okay.
and
She's
like
a good singer. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I kind of only, believe it or not, recently came across her. And I'm like, wow, maybe I feel like all these pop people, like, maybe that's kind of a bias, but I'm like, she's got a good voice. So.
she definitely does. And she has like the yeah. There's something that I like when her music first came out, and I do think yeah. There's definitely some artists too. Like I remember before she really put anything out. I don't know how I found her, to be honest, but it was when she had her stuff on SoundCloud and it blew up on SoundCloud.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, yeah, her voice definitely grabbed me. And then her first song was kind of more like just chill pop, if you will. Like it
Okay.
didn't sound like like bad guy or anything. And then like later when she put other stuff out, it's yeah, because I really love, and I love kind of like edgy stuff, and I've always loved this. Like it's and I think that's also another trend is like when an artist comes out, everyone's like, oh, I gotta sound like the new hot thing.
Yeah, I've
Which
read that different interviews with a lot of different, maybe like from the rock genre, other artists where they feel like pressured by their fans. They feel like, oh, that if someone, I've seen that in electronic stuff too, where that kind of ties in the ugly, massive, famous topic of genre. Like, oh, if I'm going to go, like when
yeah,
Tiesto goes deep house, maybe people expect him to only be like, EDM and, the whole topic of, yeah, changing. But I think for a lot of artists, they like the freedom. They don't want to be bound, to
Yeah.
be constrained, only always feeling like they have to really certain style. And they kind of hope that their true fans will kind of evolve with them, however they want to, spin their music. So
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you like called that out because that's something too with the album that I did put out, it's called Wanderer.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
before that, I mean, I had been writing music for a long time. That was something too, like there's songs on there. One of the first songs I ever wrote is actually called Wanderer, which is the last track on the album. And
Okay.
that was probably like at least 10 years ago that I wrote that song.
Oh wow,
And
it's that
so
old. I thought it was only a
yeah.
couple of years. Okay,
I mean,
interesting.
I produced it. I started producing it a few years ago, and then it was just like, and that's the thing. Like with this album too, I really wanted to like use it as my opportunity to learn how to produce and like really be able to call myself a producer. And so
Hmm.
that track was probably the first track I tried to produce. And I sort of sat on it for, a little over a year, maybe 2 years.
I think I've
And
heard that from different artists where they've had like
yeah.
maybe one of their biggest hits or some of their more popular songs. Like they've been actually been around for some time, in their archives. Because I think a lot of musicians, right? You just like produce a bunch of stuff, and maybe for different reasons, maybe production requirements, release schedules, etc. A lot of stuff maybe gets shelved, right? But maybe years later it pops out, and maybe retooled and different effects and different arrangements, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa! But maybe it's not been a new hit; it's been something that's been around for years, I guess, right?
Totally. Yeah, totally. And that's something too. I mean, like these I've had so many different ideas for different projects. And I think one thing like back to, the genre piece that we were talking about too, I had trouble and I think there's a lot of pressure for artists to like find their sound. And
Hmm.
like stick to that sound and like I think it's still something that I guess we're always exploring, but I really wanted to put together a body of work that sort of encompassed like the full scope of music that I love, and so that's what I endeavored to do, and yeah, I actually had a couple other iterations with other songs, and then this just felt really organic, and I think you even put it in the intro. I love the perceptive like part where it really was like my story and this journey
And it's
and
evolving, right? I think that's the key thing
exactly.
artistically, right? It's when
Exactly.
people say what's their sound, I think maybe it's a whip, it's a work in progress, right? So
Exactly. Totally, totally, totally. So yeah, and yeah, that question's always a tough one too when people are like, who are you influenced by? I mean, the artists I mentioned are
yeah.
certainly like I had like I still, there's a playlist that I have on my Spotify and I think I called it like my soul fave, like soul SOUL. Like
Hmm.
this is like these are the songs that speak to my soul and they're like my faves
Wow.
of all time because like I will listen like there's songs that I fall in love with, right? And they're great in that moment and then they're not necessarily for my life. Not to say the songs are bad because I will go back to them and be like this was such a great song, but it doesn't relate to me in the same way that some of these other ones do and they're like really timeless. And I even find that with my own music, and I think that's why sometimes
Sure.
artists will like write a song and then like it's shelved and then they go back to it and some of them they're like oh gosh but it's also so authentic and honest to like whatever moment it is that they were going through when they wrote it, but some of them they go back and they're like oh my gosh this is amazing, I need to like dig it out again, and so it is a little bit of a like does it pass the test of being timeless to
You
you?
read in my mind. I was just going to say that's the
Yeah.
key thing, but I think it's
Yeah.
fine. You can create different stuff and offer it up, maybe different remixes
Totally.
of stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a linear time bound thing. I think, right, in terms of like your music, and you can move. I think that's as creatives, I think we're used to fluidity, and and I think a lot of times, like as people, like for example, like with Electrofans, it's like kind of from the beginning, my goal was sort of to have it cover all genres. And I know the name of the website
Yes.
and community network's called Electrofans, but at first probably people are like, well, what the hell is it? What is it? Is electro? And I really was like very progressive house heavy, and I'm started getting more now into more like mainstream EDM stuff and also a lot of techno stuff. But it's sort of like electro fans, meaning it's short for electronic music fans or whatever's good and cool, and and our own unique following. And it's sort of like, I think for producers too, right, and musicians, it's like
Yeah.
you sort of evolve, and your true real fans will kind of be interested in you, your unique content as you go, so
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. And it's like I think it's more about the story, at least for me. Like I love, any form of media. Like it's really about the story and the
yeah.
way I
Hmm.
really think that consumers, yeah, of course you have different preferences for depending on the mood you're in. Like I think moods,
Hmm.
which actually is a little like that's kind of the next project that I'm working on actually is probably more of a series of EPs that are like moods. So the
Oh, that's
moods.
going to be interesting to check out. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
definitely have to
yeah.
check that out.
Yeah, that's like another one. This is like how I start all my
Huh.
projects. I like get like a collection of songs and it's got the I'm a very big theme concept person, so
Okay.
that's like how I really get started because after I finished the album in January, I was sort of like stuck for like a couple months just being like, what do I do
I've heard
with
that from a lot of
yeah,
producers too. Exactly. Like you feel
totally.
like you did this great production, and where can I go from here? Is that sort of the thing you're
That's
thinking?
exactly what it, yeah. And
Uh-huh.
I had again back to the idea of like I had different ideas for albums and I have songs that may never see the light of day and I'm okay with that
Yeah,
now. Like,
exactly.
yeah, and so like I had a whole second album after Wanderer that was gonna be like
Oh,
part
really?
two. And then I was like, you know what? I am not feeling that. Like it felt very much like
Hmm.
it was in the same time, if it makes sense. I would have put out something that's like the same, not the same as Wander, but like in the same mindset or like the same energy, if that makes sense,
So do you feel
as
like the
that
second one was
project.
maybe too similar in musical tone as like the
Yeah,
first one, just to be follow up on the flip side of that so soon
yeah.
after that? Is it sort of what you're thinking?
Yeah, because like again, there's some songs on there that are from like the really early days, and not to say that I wouldn't ever put that out again. Like I could totally do that, but after going through that album process, I was like, you know what sounds more that what sounds like more manageable is like an EP, as
Okay.
opposed to like a whole other album that is like similar in like it was kind of just like a sequel in a way, and we all know that the sequel is never as good as the first version. So I sort of was like, you know what, like one day maybe it'll exist, but yeah, I think it's just sort of that's the process. And yeah, I'm always sort
Yeah.
of
As we
fluid.
said too earlier, yeah, you kind of want to. I feel like you kind of want to strike a balance between pushing things forward in production schedule and also kind of shooting from the hip, off the cuff, like doing what you feel like, the vibe,
Definitely,
for sure. Yeah.
definitely, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this earlier. Like, so speaking of wanderer, you've actually been a wanderer around Europe, right, yourself?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
and that was performing too, right, as well, like musically. So, tell us a little bit what it was like, your experience, like traveling around Europe and as a singer and songwriter there too.
Yeah, yeah. So this is I guess there's a little context for it too. Like uh about a few years ago I left the corporate world. So yeah, I kind of as a follow-up to earlier, like did the thing that my family was very happy with, which was like going and getting a degree and getting a
Yeah,
job and all of that. I
do the
think there's
stable
probably
route, right? Yeah.
exactly. I'm sure that I actually think that now, especially, there's a lot of people, and I've been on a couple of conversations with like AAPI, like Asian Americans in music specifically, and a lot of them have the same story, which is like,
Hmm.
oh, I kind of did this, and then I was like, no, I really actually am passionate about music,
Hmm.
and so now I think again things are opening up for that, which is really exciting, and also like there's a lot of outlets kind of that are highlighting, which is definitely grateful for. But yeah, so I left that. I was actually working on the music business side, so I was still in music, but I was like on the industry side, and I basically just decided I had to like give it a go and like leave the corporate side and just focus on my music. And so I went to Europe, as you mentioned, and went to Sweden specifically for a lot of the just working on songs, and some of those ended up becoming my singles, which then ended up on the album. But during that time, so I was kind of like on and off in Europe for about like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Um, and we did a little tour there. So I actually also started managing one of my friends who's a dance artist, vocalist mainly, but also like just, yeah, huge. huge like I don't know exactly what he yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna butcher like his taste in music, but yeah, I really uh you know there was a lot of yeah, just exploring. And I think that especially in Europe, the community is so open, the music community, the dance community. Um, and so we figured, and he's actually based, he's like American, but he's also based in Berlin technically.
So sorry. So your European excursion, was that as the manager for this artist? You mentioned like like a European tour sort of thing, was it? Or
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
Well, we put together our own little European tour. So what we did is,
okay,
he's
okay,
independent. He was
hmm,
signed to a label before and then became independent.
okay.
So I sort of met him during that time, actually at a festival called Sonar in Barcelona, and
Oh wow.
really love Sonar. It's awesome. So we met there, and then we were both in Stockholm for a while as well. So we just became friends, and I started helping him out, and then we were like, we should do a little tour, like let's book some shows in Europe. And so we
Oh,
ended
so
up
you actually met him while you were in Europe, and then you
yeah
sort of picked up a little tour
to-
thing around Europe as manager
yep
for. Okay, wow,
yep
that's wild. Okay, okay,
yeah, it's a pretty wild story. And like,
cool. Yeah.
I mean, we actually had a mutual friend too, so it's like I had
Okay,
heard of him before, but we met. And then
okay,
yeah, serendipity.
great.
That's what life is always.
Yeah,
There's always these moments, right? So
sure.
yeah, so we ended up like booking some shows, and they weren't like massive shows, but we definitely got our chops in, like, setting up. We had to like do a bunch of coordination, did a lot of outreach, like ended up playing in like where were we? We went to Amsterdam and did something there. We did obviously in Sweden and Stockholm. Ireland was probably my favorite, in Dublin.
Yeah, I think I saw that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
yeah. And
Wow.
then I ended up getting him booked to a gig at Ministry of Sound in London, which
Oh
was
man, the Grail,
huge.
one of
Yes,
the, if not
yeah.
the holy grail for like a
It
lot of.
it was definitely
Wow, that's
special.
amazing, Lily. My God, yeah. So is he I know you're a singer and songwriter. Is he a
Yeah.
singer as well, or is he a producer, DJ, or
Exactly. He's like all of the above. Like
well, all the above?
he's got like this whole, yeah, that's like a
Wow.
whole other pro talk. Which
Yeah. Oh, I know. There's so many. I mean, there's probably we could do follow-ups too. I know it's just sort of like
totally.
it's tough to pare down like topics and like for like one interview at a time.
Yeah, I know,
Exactly.
right? It's like there's so much. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, he does it
Uh-huh.
all. He DJ'd that night.
Okay. Ministry of
And
Sound. Yeah.
Ministry of Sound was just,
Wow.
yeah. So
So what
well,
was that night like? You get were you singing up there as well for this
no, so
show?
yeah, this is purely his gig that I booked. But like the other
Wow.
shows, what happened is like we were both on the bill.
Okay.
And so it just like kind of worked out that way, and so much fun. Like I really, I think I kind of like in a way put the cart before the horse, because like I hadn't put anything out yet at that point. Like that was like my
Okay.
intention with traveling there in the first place was never like, it was always just to see what would happen. And I actually also,
Wow.
when I was out there, I ended up stumbling upon a writing camp that was, there was a group from Singapore in Sweden, and like I ended
Oh
up
my
writing a
God.
song that was like in Chinese and English. Yeah, so this is, oh, and then yeah, so
Holy
this art,
shit.
so going to like fast forwarding to today,
Wow.
we literally yesterday put out a remix of a track that we did together. So this artist, like we ended up collaborating on a track called Lottery, and
Oh yeah,
that
we're
song,
gonna play a little clip of that a little later too. I
amazing.
think that's how I first came to know your music too. And I was like,
Yeah.
and by the way, we'll jump ahead of this, but yeah, so you guys, so Lottery was featured on lead off track on Electrofans Soundscape 6, like our podcast from a couple months ago. Yeah, lead off track. I was like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is this lead off track material. So her collab with producer um Origin Story, was it? Yeah, we'll cover
Origin
that in a little
Story.
bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So just so back to so you went to Europe, you met a producer and kind of became his manager, and then you find a writing camp, and this was just all at the same time. And this is also when you're just sort of in effect sort of just starting to get ramped up with your singing songwriting career, huh?
Yeah,
Sounds
that was really
mind
like,
blowing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I pretty much, yeah, because I've been working on music and like I'm like the type of person who tends to like put everything, like I don't just, I mean, I do, obviously I do everything for fun, like I love it, but I also tend to like be like, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. And so it was just too much at the time. I hadn't really like had the chance to like really learn and deep dive. And I had um, I guess like everything at that point had sort of led me to being in LA. Like I was going into a studio to sort of just like help out and not as a creative. But again, you learn a lot. So I was just absorbing this whole time, but I didn't really find a space where I was like collaborating to the level. And I still think that that's something, now that we're in a remote environment, do the best we can, and that's actually something I'm working on this year. This year I really wanted to just like try and collaborate as much as possible, and right now I'm back to like working in a corporate gig. um, but I found that actually, I had that 2 years to like really get set up and make something I was proud of and put it out. And then this whole past year was just like getting the album together. So
Hmm.
yeah, like
Showtime,
it's
right?
exactly. So it's always a balancing act, but yeah, now I'm actually really collaborating a lot with dance producers.
Yeah, we're going
Because,
to get to that too, and can't
yeah,
wait to.
yeah.
So yeah, actually, our next question is, so who'd you say are some of your favorite artists you've been listening to lately? Which could include, either dance or EDM, or I know you're also into big like soul and pop stuff as well. So you mentioned Billie Eilish. So who else are some of the artists and people you've been listening to and digging lately?
Yeah, so okay, lately, oh man, this is tough because I think that everybody in the
Yeah.
pandemic, it's tough because
Yeah,
I
there's so many. It's like for me, like someone recently asked me like what would be, she was doing a project like and where everyone goes around the world and says like a track that's, I'm like, it could be 100 or maybe 1,000. Yeah, literally, I know a lot of people that are listening to this right now are probably thinking the same thing. How do you even whittle
yeah,
that down? It's like,
yeah, I've been
a
going
couple
back.
thousand
Yeah,
tracks.
I've been going back to like throwbacks. That's a thing too. Like I don't really listen to that much new. It's really bad. Like I guess now that I'm making music, I obviously am like hearing stuff, but I'm not in the same way like I described before. I'm like listening
I hear
as
you.
I
Yeah,
as
it's
much as I
different
can.
when you're working
Yeah,
behind the scene in the music kind of
definitely.
business. Like you're listening ear, you're listening a different way. It's like you have to have your own time and space to really. It's you listen with a different ear. I think when you're more in, I know what you mean. Yeah, then like you're just
Totally.
on your own. You're like
Totally.
chilling,
Yeah.
vegging out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, as an example, I was like, I was like just playing, the song, it's called like Listen to Your Heart, super old.
Okay.
And I can't remember who it's like, listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Like that song,
Okay.
so old, so cheesy. And I think it was like a Swedish duo that did it like way, way, way back when, but it was like big
Oh wow.
when I was like 10 or something. But things like that, I don't know. I'm starting to get like super nostalgic. And I know a lot
Hmm.
of tracks that are coming out are like very, very 80s inspired.
Yeah, the
But
'80s just doesn't go away. The whole synth wave thing. It's
no, yeah,
amazing. Like a lot of people are like 20-year-olds. I'm like, they
yeah,
were born maybe 20 years later. It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
good.
yeah, no,
There was good stuff then. Yeah.
yeah, no, and I'm listening. There's a lot of artists too through like like just independent artists like myself. And then there's like I'm trying to think of I'm like, maybe I should just open my Spotify and just like I'm literally opening my Spotify because I can't
Oh, no worries. Yeah. I
remember.
mean, you kind of mentioned a couple. Yeah. We can actually maybe,
Yeah,
kind of move on to. I mean, I think,
yeah,
yeah, there's so many. You mentioned a lot of, which to me, I mean, I feel like I have a lot of maybe eclectic taste, but to me, were some esoteric names, like some Danish, Swedish producers that maybe I've not heard of. Yeah. So, yeah, it sounds like probably you mentioned Celine Dion too. Even well, that's not maybe currently, maybe when you were a kid, but it's
yeah.
interesting how you're into Disney though. That's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
that's how it all started. Was
Yeah.
Disney.
And I hear you too. Like when you're when you're doing the stuff for your own, like me as Electrofans, I'm listening to things maybe with an ear for like what would I include in Electrofans podcast or mix. We do the selection of the week. it's different than you doing it listening with your ear personally. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
hear you. There's like so many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, though, maybe switching gears a little bit. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your approach to songwriting, sort of changing gears just a bit.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that is something too that I don't know if it's really, I think it maybe is going through a process of shifting a little bit now, but I always start with like off of a computer.
Okay.
And that's something too that yeah, because again, I've started learning to produce, and now I did produce, so I need to call myself a producer and just like
Mm-hmm.
have it be a thing. But
Okay.
in my songwriting process, it is like a lot of the times it's like I am feeling a certain way, and then I'll sit down. Usually I'm sitting down at a piano, or sometimes, you can see there's like a guitar in the background that way.
Yeah,
uh,
I've seen your
um,
some of your live clips on like Instagram where you just pick up the
yeah.
guitar and start singing. That's really cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely like have a different vibe depending on what the instrument is. But a lot of things are
Hmm,
just
okay.
like I've got the chords that I'll go to, and like I just sort of like feel it. It's not really. I don't. I think that's the thing. Like in every other aspect of my life, I'm like thinking, and this is like the one thing where I don't.
Hmm.
And that's why it's like a decompressing. It's like how I process. It's like meditative for me. Like this whole experience is pretty meditative. Sometimes it's definitely thought provoked. Like I would say there's two main ways that I write. One is like what I just described, and the other is I'll just be like in thought, and then something catches, or like I'll like be thinking about something and I'll sing it out, and then I'm like, ooh, that's a great
Oh
lyric.
wow.
That happened to me this morning. Like it's just
Okay.
there's always constant. I always think that I'm like catching moments. So it's very much like not pre-planned. Like
Do you
I'm not the type
record? Do
of
you make
person.
recordings of
Yes.
that too?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This like
Nice.
here
Memo, voice memo
in
thing.
my
Yeah.
yeah voice
Uh-huh.
memos. My voice memos are like packed, and there's just like so
I
many.
do
Yeah.
that too for Electrofans too. Literally, like started the first kind of substantive few questions for one of my next guests who we should be having on, within the next few weeks. As I was walking down by the beach, I like typed it. I feel like in the past, maybe I've done some pretty nice work, like, just like walking around, typing on my phone. Of course, obviously you want to look around while you're walking, typing, but
Yeah. Oh no, I
but you want to
definitely
catch it. The point is, yeah, here you want to catch it when the moment strikes. Sounds like something else, but when the
Yeah.
moment
No, I
strikes,
remember
you
because
want
I
to
used to
catch
live
it.
in New
Yeah.
York. Speaking of like walking on the
Oh my
street, like
God.
while you're
Yeah.
like I
Oh
used to live in
well.
New York, and I would like be walking to
Yeah.
work, and I was like, oh, and then I would just like, but you obviously have to
Yeah.
pay attention, so it was like
Sure.
this whole thing. So yeah, I think that because my mind's just like always going on, so like I'll have an idea, and sometimes right then and there I'm building it out. There's a lot of times that I'll just sit down at the piano, and it's just like there's the whole song, like pretty much the whole song is built out, and other times it's more of like there's certain songs for sure that I struggle to like get a few lines written, so there's definitely that, but I love the whole process. And then when the song's done, so I'll usually have like the whole thing in like an acoustic version, if you will, done, from there that's really when I have to figure out, a lot of the times when I'm writing I have an idea of what the production should sound like and how I
Hmm.
want it to feel
Okay.
and everything. Like with my song Fast Life, for example, like I knew I wanted it to be like 80 synth, and I knew that the bass
Hmm.
line had to be like do 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 do. So I did a
Oh
demo.
yeah.
Like this is when I again was like learning how to produce. So I did a
Okay.
demo where I just kind of did that with a synth, and I sent that to my friend in Sweden, Carl, who's amazing. I love him, and he's such a great producer, and I like definitely trust him with like whatever vision I have. So yeah, I sent that over, and then he like just made it really magical. So that
Okay.
definitely is part of it. And then certain other songs I ended up producing fully, which is kind of a similar process where I like put in my ideas and stuff, and then I'm the one who like develops it out. So yeah.
So it's sort of a combination of catching like snippets and maybe picking up later, and other times you actually sit down and kind of bust out a whole song at one clip, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
for
and you
sure.
have an
Like,
idea for some of those
yeah,
on the fly too. Yeah. So like for
totally,
Fast
totally.
Life, let's actually take a listen to Fast Life right now, just for
Yeah,
a
let's do
quick little
it.
peek here. Let's see what we got. So this is EL.SY, Fast Life, the radio edit. You can, yeah, definitely hear the 80s synthwave
Oh, I
intro
don't.
already.
Oh, now I hear it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Oh, it is coming a little choppy through.
Oh, is it? Okay. Hmm.
No, this is Zoom.
So it's a bit choppy. Sorry if the audio is a bit choppy, guys, but just figure you guys can hear a clip of it. Yeah.
Yeah, what are we doing here anyways? It's like it was kind of a joke when I said it, but then I was like, nope, very, very crucial to the song.
Yeah, the first time I heard that on when I was checking it on SoundCloud, I don't know, it kind of even reminded me of, I guess, I don't know if I want to say country, but maybe even a little bit of like
Oh yeah.
country vocal style. Actually, that's kind of a freaking wild juxtaposition if you think about it. Country possibly influenced vocals with a 80s synthwave,
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, there's
It's
definitely
like,
there's like it's so weird because like that's another thing. Country is I don't again, when I was younger, I actually think I did listen to more country, like who Faith Hill, another great
mm-hmm,
vocalist,
yeah.
like Shania Twain stuff. Not a lot. Again, like I don't know. I just like pick up. I can like listen to something and then it like is part of it's part of the psyche now and it influences. But like yeah, it was funny because like when I did that song and then there's a couple other songs on my record. And I was like, "Am I becoming a country artist?" Because
Really?
I
Yeah, I feel like
definitely have
country,
like country
yeah.
stylings in my vocals, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Country
Oh,
folk, I feel like there can be some overlap and blending. Yeah, I mean, I don't really maybe care for the newer stuff so much, but some of the older,
mhm.
like American
Yeah.
countries, Willie Nelson is awesome, and some of that stuff,
Mhm.
and maybe some of that stuff is where you can get some fusion of country and folk, and
Definitely.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's awesome that you from the get go, since you were a kid, we're always into the pan. I'm always about pan genre, like I say, Electrofans is all about it's all about it, anything and everything conceivably, whether it's deep house, vocals.
Mhm.
You know, I like that. If it's good, it's good. If it's cool, it's variety's good. I feel like so
Exactly.
as an influence, yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah. So speaking of your career as an artist, so could you maybe this is going to be a really tough like $10,000 question here, but maybe briefly describe your evolution as an artist so far.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because like it's I pretty much went from like closeted singer writer. I mean like I had opportunities to sing when I
Bedroom
was,
singer type thing.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was a bedroom singer for a long time and like writer. But I didn't, again, everything was like analog, if you will. Like I wasn't trying when I was a teenager, I didn't even really, I just kind of always assumed, I think at that time too, it was very much more of, you get signed and you get into a room with a producer and then you know what I mean? So it wasn't like I will learn how to produce, which changed a lot, I think, in sort of like my 20s, but like I yeah, I started off again not really sharing the music I was writing. I did sing. I was in like singing groups. Like I was in like this band as well when I was in business school. So I was like I was performing. And so that's why I really like fell in love with performing because I actually really love to perform.
Yeah, it
Uh,
seems like even when you do like your like short Instagram like clips that you really that's yeah, and it shows too, like when people have passion and love what they do and the genuineness, authenticity. Yeah. And the perform that's great
yeah,
that I think it shows, comes across too, that you really dig the performance aspect of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, totally. And that's like, you know, and now that things are opening, we were talking about this before the interview.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
when do I, and even like my performance, I want that to evolve, because right now it's a lot of me and a guitar, because I'm used to, I can do an acoustic performance, or me and a piano. So my dream is to be able to work the, like, all the gear, have all the gear around, like do the synth kind of like live performance with, like, the mic here, and like, looping and stuff. Like I
Hmm.
really love that as
Like an
well.
Imogene Heap or something, maybe, right? Like
Yeah,
something wild.
totally.
Like,
Love an Image. I saw her
yeah.
live when she was doing her. It's so funny too, because she like came out of tour hibernation, if you will, and then was doing a tour, and then thankfully that was before the pandemic. But in any case, yeah, I saw her kind of before that all that all happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a big part. And then I with this album, I think this was like the best first project for me to put out, because it was just very organic, very authentic, and I didn't put any pressure on it to have huge commercial success. I just wanted it to
Hmm.
be something that I was proud of at the time. And so now, as I'm evolving, it's, and I think I mentioned, like, I'm working a lot more on dance music, just because I love it. I think it's fun, and
Is
like,
that kind of like you just sort of feeling it at the moment? You're kind of getting into it and like
yeah.
the vibe. And yeah, I do. And I know like a lot of our Electrofans listeners, when they who haven't heard of you before, when they check out, Lottery, they're gonna be like, wow, this is some cool stuff. This really good singer, and with the EDM high, velocity, pumped up vibe. Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, I
People
really,
like it. Yeah.
yeah, because like I'm all about like the feeling you get when you listen to a song. And like for me,
Totally.
it's like
Yeah.
all feel like it's like pure to me, like my
Yeah.
songs are just like, I mean, there's like a balance I really like having like witty lyrics as well. So that's something that I think I work hard on, more on like the brain side, but then everything else is just like a feeling. And yeah, it's kind of like some songs are like very deep, and some are just like, I want to be like really playful and cheeky and stuff. So I think my next step in evolution is like, I really want to like just go harder with like the songs and the moods. And because like I think this first one was just kind of like, it was very, my Wander is extremely like, it's like ooh, and so
Hmm.
the sounds were uh yeah, like there wasn't anything on the album that I would say that was like, how do I describe it? Like, it didn't hit you in the face necessarily, if that makes sense. Like, if it
Yeah.
did, it wasn't like, yeah. So I almost am like, I kind of just want with my next, and with each of these moods, to like, it's still gonna sound very much. There's some songs on Wanderer that I think are very similar in like style and aesthetic. Like, there's a song called Cafe Society that I think has
Hmm.
got more of that like cheeky playfulness. With like some lyrics that are pretty clever, and that's more like pop, like traditionally kind of like pop that you would hear.
And
But
actually,
yeah,
Fast Life that we just played a little bit earlier
yeah,
ago, that's on the Wanderer album, I think, too, right?
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
seemed to me like the Wanderer album, from what I've heard of it, is pretty heavy on like the folk, sort of like singer songwriter like aspect, more than
Yeah.
like the heavy, like you say, in your face.
Yep.
So even that style of that track that we just played is a little bit more like Fast Life is a bit more like edgy. And it's interesting the
Yeah.
juxtaposition, I'm thinking, between folksy stuff and the you know pumping velocity EDM stuff. It's cool that you can
Definitely.
kind of ride both those kind of waves with your music. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think even in each of these EPs that I'm looking to do, it's like there's some songs that are pretty stripped back, and I just want it to be, and I actually think artists like Billie Eilish do a good job of this, where they've got their slow, just like you just hear the vocals, you just hear the emotion. And then there's like the very produced, like bad guy type things that are more edgy and playful.
Okay.
And I think that's something that I think I've always, in every song, before any of, um I guess before it became like a thing, because I do think like music has evolved as well. Like, I'm even just like so encouraged by the fact that people, like artists, I think, are broadening their scope. Even if you hear a specific sound with, like, for example, the Billie Eilish, if you actually listen to her album, there's a range even there. So that I think back in the day, it was like an album was just a bunch of songs that kind of sounded like each other. But
Yeah.
you really loved that sound, so you just like, kept listening to stuff. And so now I think there is a little bit more like it's, yeah, broader, but
Yeah, I feel like a lot of producers and musicians, like they kind of do kind of most of the time tend to stay in one kind of similar bag. But yeah, I totally feel like, just it's funny you say that, because I feel like for the last couple of years that in the electronic space that, yeah, it's getting a lot more prevalent for people to branch out. And, it used to be like, oh, it's pure trance and like progressive, whatever. And now I think you're really seeing, again, for me, I think it's been worked out for Electrofans, because that was always my intention before. And
yeah,
to
you
cover
were
all
there.
genres. And now I'm like, boom, it's big and being vogue the last couple of years. I feel like, okay, maybe that's
Exactly.
part of why Electrofans has been getting hotter and hotter.
Yes, no, yeah. I mean, that's huge. Like I really think the moment for the melding of
Yeah,
I already think we're beyond genre. And I think like
yeah,
any
okay,
artist that you ask is actually, I think
yeah,
that's something that a lot of artists agree with, which is that there's no such thing as genre anymore. And
yeah. I feel
it's
like maybe
reserved for
Tiesto, Dead Mouse. I mean, a lot of the top
yeah,
DJ guys, and sounds like even Billie Eilish, major pop people are hip to that groove of like, whatever. It's about quality and necessarily like tags and genre. Yeah.
totally,
Yeah, so what
exactly.
was it like on this? So you worked on a track called Lottery with
Yep.
a producer Origin Story, which, as I say, is kind of how I came to know your music. And your association with us and Electrofans. Again, that was featured. So EL.SY's track with producer Origin Story was featured as the lead-off track on Soundscape 6, which was the Electrofans podcast a couple months ago. I'll play a clip of that in a second. So yeah, actually, let's see, scroll that.
Clip time.
So this is Lottery from EL.SY with Origin Story. Just love the vibe and energy on this track. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like woo.
Yeah. That part too. Yeah. It must have been really interesting working on this in the studio. Yeah. We'll let play for a few seconds first.
Yeah, actually, the secret is we didn't work on it in a studio. It
Oh,
was
really?
bedrooms and like, oh yeah,
Oh, is that how you
I
did it? Really? That's
yeah.
interesting
Honestly,
because,
I'm like thinking there's Shadow was done in a studio, and I think that was like the only song that was done in a studio that I've put out. Um,
really, because
Everything
to
else
me,
is
this really sounds like, and let's listen for a few seconds again. It really
yeah. I
sounds
mean,
like you guys were going to be physically together in the studio here. Let's check it out.
yeah, I mean, it's the magic of technology, I guess. But I
Yeah.
recorded it in a bedroom in New York. And then Origin, yeah. So Origin Story,
Wow.
he's the singer, like the male singer on the track.
Yeah.
And he wrote those parts. So he's the artist on it. And then
Okay.
we actually had someone else produce it. And then he also, of course, like helped produce as well.
Yeah, the
And
production is really is kick
yeah,
ass. I feel like, yeah, that's what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Whether
Well, the
you guys did,
production may
yeah,
have been done in a studio,
okay,
but the recordings were all like, yeah, in bedrooms and like, yeah, because we're on the move at the time. At least we were on the move all the time, and it's actually pretty funny. Like we were in New York at the time, and I think I wrote the chorus in like 20 minutes or something.
really,
We were like on
wow,
our way to an
huh?
event, and then he was like,
Oh
"Okay, we gotta
man,
like," and then I was like, "Okay," and then I recorded it later. Like I wrote it, and then I probably wrote it and then like tweaked it a bit later, and then I ended up recording it in a bedroom, and then those were the vocals that we used, and that song also sat for maybe a year before it got finished.
well, I know, like
Um,
I kind of learned this before, like with the last few years, even before this stupid pandemic situation. Like a lot of, I totally got to see that it was commonplace for a lot of, whether like a trance vocalist or whatever style, like you kind of did this, your work collab stuff was done virtually, like a singer would get the parts, and with like the space open, they would sing in it. And sometimes when it's done so well, it's like you really like in your case here, I really feel like with Lottery, you kind of feel like you almost can't tell the difference, like it was done live together in the studio. That's really the test, when it sounds like it's just a natural, nice, smooth fit. Yeah.
yeah, and that's like a surprising fact that I've gotten, and I think that's something that time taught me as well, is that
Yeah,
you
exactly.
really can do, yeah, you really, I mean, I again going back to, I think we were talking about like the perfectionism and like how,
Yeah.
I would have, again back then, it was like you had to be in a studio, you had to be in a vocal booth. Like I've been in vocal booths, I love it, like, but I none of my stuff Really, like again, there were, I would say like Fast Life wasn't in a vocal booth, but we had more of a proper. I had a friend who actually produced On the Road with me, which is like one of my more folky tracks. She ended up, she was going to school for like production and sound engineering. And so
Oh,
we went to her
nice.
school and recorded this in Sweden
Okay.
and recorded the vocals, but it still wasn't in a studio. It was like in a classroom
It's
and
kind of
like
a studio though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like there was, there was like a little bit of a, but like, and then I had a friend who I recorded the vocals for Shadow in a booth that someone built in their apartment. I was like, this is amazing.
Wow.
Like people
It's
are just
cool.
doing,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
don't need a
Mm-hmm.
studio per se anymore
Mm-hmm.
to make really quality music, and that was something that I think was super freeing
And of
too.
course, nowadays during the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people have really nailed that whole thing, right? Because out of necessity, everyone's had to, work in their home studio, living room, studio,
Yeah,
and people are really taking rising to the occasion and and raising it, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because I think too for me it was like I always had these blockers in my head where it was like I need to be in a like, and
Mhm.
studios are expensive, like very very expensive.
Oh, I can
And
imagine. Yeah, I've
oh
not
yeah,
been in
yeah,
myself, but yeah, I was just
yeah,
thinking too. This could be an entire whole pro talk, a couple
yeah,
things in and of
right.
itself. Like
Like a
that's the
whole
thing. Me
theme.
personally, I am kind of a musician. I used to play keyboard and guitar years ago, but I'm not like I'm actually like a web developer and I'm the founder and CEO for those. A lot of people know, but who don't know of Electrofans. So I'm sort of a different capacity. But a lot of people, key people in our network, like yourself and Future Phil Barker, JP Lancieri, are full on, Daniela, Zari are full on producers and DJs as well as dealing with label stuff. So, but yeah, we actually have a series on Electrofans blog, totally, where a lot of the folks who are real more producers, electronic music producers than myself, again, like JP Lancieri and Phil Barker, Future Phil for production techniques. And I was just thinking that could be a whole. I may have
Yeah.
to get like some other, maybe like Phil or JP to maybe sit on me for that one, doing like a pro talk focused on production stuff. Yeah.
Totally. And like homes do. I mean, everything. I feel like so many people are bedroom producers and artists and whatnot now. And like you have, I've got like my whole setup here. And yeah, I mean, there's still, I think that I like speaking of evolution of artists, like I'm still trying to figure out how to best record my voice so that it sounds, because I think that I'm again very proud of all the stuff that's out, but there's just like, to me, I don't think I've found that pocket yet. Like there's certain artists like Dua Lipa or like they've got their sound, you know what I mean? And it's like their voice is going to sound like this in all their tracks because it's like the best way that there's, they've determined that this is how my voice sounds.
Well,
And like
I could
that's still
say
something
this
that
though.
I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
think
figure
with
out.
sorry, yeah, I think with lottery, when that point where you really go high, on the pitch, I
Mhm.
think you covered that well. I think the recording was done really well. Where you really go up high with it. So I think you're totally on the right track. And I think overall wise, production wise, for the track lottery, you're there. I mean, I can't help but think that some of that, as we talked before we started doing this interview too, is again, that nasty thing of perfectionism is kind
Oh
of
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's never good
totally,
enough. There's not,
totally.
this
And
isn't
like
high
when you
enough
hear your
res.
own voice,
Oh,
it's always
I
like
know. I
cringe
know.
a
It's
little
like,
bit.
I know. A lot of people are in this boat, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And you get better by doing, I know. Like, it's the first one, but, for me, doing this pro talk, but like everything, the more you learn by doing, for sure. Yeah. Evolution is a teacher. So back on the EDM front, again, we kind of covered some of this, like as to who some of your favorite, musical influences producers are you've been listening to. But as far as like EDM and DJ specifically, are there a couple names in that field that? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Before we go, that I was wondering his origin story. Where is he actually from? Is he from New York? Is he from LA or
Yeah,
Europe?
so he is originally from Texas
Oh,
and
Texas. Okay.
yeah, but spent a lot of time
Ah,
in New York. I would call him probably more of a New Yorker.
okay. Is that where
And
you met him
so
in New York? Was it or?
no, again, we met in Barcelona, very
Oh,
random.
okay.
But
Wow, that was the
and
the
yeah,
pivotal meetup, Barcelona
yep.
in
And then
Europe.
he's currently in New York, but he also is based in Berlin. So he's like trying to get
Okay.
residency there. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Berlin
so
again. Yeah, JP and then Gillespie,
Berlin's a
who's going to be
huge,
probably,
yeah,
yeah. Oh,
exactly,
yeah.
especially for dance music and like they
Hmm.
have just better, I think like artist visa I guess,
Okay. There's so
requirements.
many clubs. They got to like hundreds. That's going to be so. One of our next guests, everybody, I'm hoping is going to be Gillespie, and he's also originally from LA, kind of based
Yeah,
in
that's right. You were
Berlin.
saying
And I'm going to talk. That's one of the questions I want to ask him is like the Berlin versus because the LA scene. Because yeah, I'm here. I'm based in San
very
Francisco,
different.
but I really feel like LA entertainment wise, which obviously includes the music industry, is one of and of course Hollywood the thing. But as far as electronica and I feel like dancier stuff is maybe based. The base would be maybe out of Amsterdam, maybe London, but yeah, Berlin. For what they say, overall electronic music is kind of the capital of the electronic music world. I feel like. Yeah, were you in
Yeah.
Berlin when you were over there when you were in
Yeah,
Europe?
I did. I went to Berlin. I went to Berlin. Definitely went to Amsterdam as well.
Mhm.
I'm trying to, yeah, what I spent, I would say most of my time in Sweden. Spain, I was there as well.
Yeah, Ibiza, and yeah, all
And
those. Yeah, all of
yeah,
Europe. Yeah, is very huge. I know Sweden
it's
and
huge. Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously
yeah.
London and Amsterdam and Berlin. Went to Paris also, but not necessarily
Mhm.
too much for music. And I said we went to Ireland. That was just like super fun to play there. And I think that pretty much, yeah, those were like
Yeah.
the spots that we hit.
Sorry, I guess I digressed there again. But as far as like, yeah, ED,
It's all good.
always do that. Like EDM producers, DJs, where there's some that kind of stick in your mind. I mean, Origin Story, I guess, obviously is one, but maybe like bigger names or medium. I don't know, some people
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't maybe
Well,
know of.
I mentioned Elderbrook, so
Okay, yeah,
love Elderbrook. There's a guy named Sohn who it's like Sohn. Um, he's like a producer for the artist I mentioned before, Banks. Like he's done stuff with her, and so that's like where I found. He's also like London. I think a
okay,
lot of producers in that they have like a specific sound, especially with like the synths that they use. Um, and so yeah, I love he in particular with his live performances is just like incredible. So
so okay,
yeah, I tend to like, I guess I tend to like people who are artists and also producers and like in the space because I just think it's like I don't know, they it's a different level of creativity. But I do also
Hmm.
love the kind of like I mean who didn't love Avicii when Levels came out? Like just from a
Yeah,
so those definitely like there's some influence there.
okay,
Who else? There's they have a song called Run Galantis. Thank you.
hmm.
I was like, there's a lot of G related people. I didn't want to get it wrong. So Galantis is another one.
Okay,
Yeah, there's definitely a ton. There's like a ton too of just individual tracks that I've heard. Like I'm always a fan too of like the Zed Martin Garrix, like kind of like your
hmm.
tradition, but like the vocals that they use or like
Hmm.
Kigo. I think it's actually Kigo, not Kygo, but
Yeah, yeah,
like with the
okay,
vocals, like
yeah,
um that whole ambiance, like I do really love that as well. But I would say like the artists that I really listen to and like would listen to on repeat, it's more along the lines of kind of like the fringe of that. There's also this group called, I don't even know how you pronounce it. They're based in Australia. There's some Australian artists, by the way, who are like incredible, and I love music that
wow,
comes there
you
as
are
well.
all over the place. That's really
Yeah.
neat. Wow.
But yeah, there's this band called Klo, I want to say. It's like
I haven't
Kloloni.
heard a lot of these names, so it's interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to
Wow.
send some stuff, but like
Yeah.
they love their vibe. It's
Hmm.
I'm like really bad with vocabulary and how to like describe sounds, but it's just again, I'm like very much based on the feeling and it's
Hmm.
yeah, so I've been a big fan of theirs for a while as well. So yeah, those are probably some names, but there's definitely more that I
Oh, sure.
um
Yeah.
haven't mentioned.
I hear you on the feeling. Yeah. The like I was mentioning before we started the interview too. Yeah. The preview, the YouTube mix from DJ Igor D did on Thursday. That was really, yeah. I mean, I was commenting things as Electrofans, user, like how some of the reactions. Yeah. It was just as the mix progressed. Yeah. It was the vibe and the feel. Like we mentioned some of the Guy J tracks and other stuff, and totally the feel and the vibe you get from something is um where it's at. Yeah, it makes you kind of really dig the music. Yeah. Yeah, so turning gears again a little bit here, next question. So who would be some of your dream collabs? I think I may have seen one of the interviews you did on Instagram where maybe the interviewer asked you this question, but yeah, who would be some of your dream collabs?
Man, that's like
You can take a second to think too.
there's so many. It's
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, sure.
I honestly I like I thought, I've thought about this before. There's certainly people, okay, let me think. Like I would love some of the names I mentioned before, like Zone,
Hmm.
um, would love to. I'm trying to think. There's some producers too, like I'm sure you know too, there's the artist called, her name is Lord. She was like huge a while back. But
Hmm.
her there's a producer she worked with called Joel Little. Love
Okay.
him. Like pretty much like yeah, big yeah, there's definitely a ton of like big producers in pop that I would love to work with. And
Okay.
also dance. So yeah, and I actually had, this is like a fun fact type of thing. I had sent a track to Kygo, or Kigo, it's really
Oh,
how you say
really?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, for a course that he's doing, because I took a course to learn production on Monthly, which is like a Coursera type of platform.
I may have seen an ad for
And
that on
so
Facebook for that. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
they've definitely been hitting that and that hard. And so I had sent in a track and it's like in the chorus, like you can hear it, but he didn't end up picking it to produce. But like
Oh,
anything
really?
like
Wow.
that, like I would be definitely stoked for. But I think that like honestly be like those big names, if that ever happens, of course, like amazing. And I would be extremely grateful to have that
I could see it,
experience.
Lily. Get
Right?
ready. I think
Yeah.
you're going to be doing that. I can see it,
Yeah.
and it'd be awesome too
But
if, yeah.
what I was gonna say is like I like honestly would love to just work with like up and coming, and that's kind of what I've been
Uh-huh.
doing now. Like,
Okay.
and of course there's so many people who are so talented now, and it's tough because it's like there's only so much time in
Yeah.
the
I
day.
know. I know.
So I'm having a lot of fun too, like working with the people I am. And it's gotten again a lot easier based on the technology. Like you can work with a lot more people, but it's also just like
You have to
yeah,
pick and
it's,
choose. Yeah,
you,
it's
you
not.
do kind of have to at a certain point be like,
Yeah.
okay, what direction am I going in and whatnot. But I would
Mhm.
love to, like, yeah, I tend to think that my next really exciting collab is like someone who I am not aware of, but is, I guess, whoever is the next, the future. And I think that the future is evolving. So
Mhm.
people always say that it's like, this is the next fill in the blank. And it's like, insert name of person who's famous right now, but at the same time I think every person who comes up with something like definitely adds something completely different. So I'm excited to see kind of where that goes, and I would love to work with people
Yeah.
there, which I've heard producers say too. They're always like, I want to work with like the next, not next, but like
Who's going to be the
developing
next one,
people.
like in like
Yeah,
next year kind of thing. Yeah. I was
yeah,
going to say,
yeah.
I really, I know some of the biggest names. They have an eye out for, and who knows, but maybe even knock on wood, literally hear that, guys, maybe from checking out Electrofans network and channels, maybe thinking,
Hey.
because that's what we do. We really cover some really up and coming stars like yourself. But yeah, like for example, like on Origin Story on Lottery, he's not like some Kygo or like
Yeah,
insert DJX, but it's totally at that level. And I can totally see, I can't think of, which, I don't know, Tiesto, but there are certain things though. I think Armin van Buren, I think, is more, it's dance. And I've totally been noticing more recently, like a trance dance amalgam kind of thing. So people that they kind of do have, if you're a particular label or a DJ, they do kind of have a certain kind of general style they go for. But I know that guy though, Van Buren and these Tiesto guys, they're always looking for the latest up and coming, you know, uh, hot producer and collab thing. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be whatever, but I can see you there, Lily. I can see you that you'll be there. I think you totally could, the next, well, near future on some of these top collab. Like I say, the track Lottery with Origin Story is a hot track. And it's like, it's whatever, but I wouldn't put it as a lead off track for Electrofans if I didn't think that. So it's totally,
thank
it's
you.
on the way, or if not already at that level,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks so
Um,
much. I really appreciate that. And I know Origin Story does too. Yeah, because he actually launched that project like separately too. So because he had a whole other like artist project, and this is like a new dance project. So
Oh yeah, I have to check out some
definitely,
of his other work too. Yeah,
yeah, this is definitely like a new, yeah. So getting that off the ground, right? So yeah, we're just, I think again, yeah, just making sure the quality is there and just continuing to deliver and like just like
yeah,
have fun with it. I think that's another thing, you know,
yeah.
I definitely have gone through like the peaks and valleys of doing this, and at the end of the day, it's like we don't have to do anything in this life really, honestly. We really don't. We don't have to do anything, but like isn't it more fun to do something, you know? And I
And it
think
feels good after,
yeah.
I totally hear you. I think of those of us in the music space, I don't think it's just me. I think on a daily basis, I'm sure Elaine, Wang from Neon Owl are always like, what the hell am I doing? Why? It's just, it gets draining because you put so
Does.
much of it into this, you're all, and it's like, and as we know in the music thing, most people, unless you're one of these top dog names, you're not making much bread, much money, but it really,
Mhm.
it's true. It is for the love and the passion. And then,
It is, yeah.
there's burnout, but it's like, the feeling you get after you have it in the can, production like this first Electrofans Pro Talk, you know, one of these series, and it feels great to have done it. I hear you.
Yes.
And
Totally.
people, when people really listen to it and dig it and like what you're doing, that really, like we're seeing the reaction, the vibe, like DJ Igor D and I were saying, people, he was saying the response from our last the premiere we did with him on Thursday was one of the biggest ones he'd ever gotten. And this is the first really, in effect,
Awesome.
live DJ mix we did from Electrofans on YouTube. I'm like, that's what I'm freaking talking about. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
feeling and the excitement. Yeah, that's the drive that, why you do that. Yeah. Any advice you can give to aspiring singer songwriters?
Yes.
Another easy little small scale question again, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, there's definitely, I would say, like, I think that there, for me, as in sort of this journey I've taken, I've learned to just be patient and again just focus on the 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 like feeling that you get when you're doing it. And I think this is like a huge lesson just for life that I have like through reading, like the last few years too. I've just been like reading a ton and a lot. You know, one theme emerges, which is just that it's about the journey, not the end result, right? And I think people kind of know it, and I have to constantly remind myself of that too, because
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would be making music if I shared it or I didn't. No matter what, I've always
Hmm.
been doing it. And I got to a certain point where I was just like, I felt kind of guilty for not sharing it, if that makes sense. It feels like you're holding
Mm-hmm.
back on, you know, because I
Yeah.
think that
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we get a lot of joy when we're sharing, right? And that's why like social media, as horrible as it is, and we talked about this too, it really
It's
at
a
its
mixed
true
bag.
core,
Yeah.
exactly, at its true core, it's just about the joy of sharing and people getting value
Yeah.
out of what you're sharing. And so like it becomes, there's a switch though, right? Like it gets into territory that's like not good for you when you do it for the wrong reason. And I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say wrong, nothing's like right or wrong, black and white, but it's like
Maybe if you
when you're not,
overdo it. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And like if it's not coming from an authentic place. So
Mm-hmm.
and I think like I also was just really especially when I was starting out, I was just like like deer in headlights. I don't know who to work with. I don't, but
Yeah.
like again,
That's
if you
all of
just,
us. Yeah. When you start off.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's just about again kind of like patience and like just whoever you vibe, like you're gonna know when you vibe with someone. And also like don't be afraid to like try and fail. I think that's like for
Yeah.
me, I'm still learning that all the time.
Yeah.
Like
Again, that perfection thing. Like I swear
totally.
we really might have to, maybe we can have you in on this too. Maybe this would be like a broader
About
Zoom
perfectionism, yeah. I feel like
discussion
that's like
for
the
pro. Yeah.
constant creatives
Because I think
like
there's a lot of us that
problem.
are like that, and that shit can really hold us back.
Yeah,
Oh, the
yeah,
lighting is not right for the video thing, or the HQ is I mean, the audio, the music isn't HQ, it's choppy.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
fuck it, man, get it out the
Yeah,
door.
just do it. Just
Totally
yeah.
done is better than
But
perfect.
yeah,
Just
it
do it.
is. It's so true. And that's, you know, I think that there's I think that in advice that's been given, like because I sit on a lot of these things too, and people give you advice, and like I think also one piece of advice I will say is every piece of advice has to be taken with a grain of salt because nothing is absolute. Like nothing I'm saying is like, oh, therefore you must be patient, so you should say no to
Hmm.
these opportunities. No, that's like not what I'm saying at
But
all.
it
It's
still
more
is
of like,
really great. You totally want to
yeah,
get
it's like
a lot of advice though
totally,
too, though. Yeah. But
yeah,
then
like
you exactly
yeah.
you filter it out. Yeah.
Exactly. Like it's like whatever, honestly, it's like whatever feels right or good to you in the moment. Like don't over, because I do this a lot. I like overthink things a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
know.
and you just
Me
have to
too.
ask yourself, like, how do you feel about it? Because sometimes you're right.
Hmm.
Sometimes like you're afraid and wary of something because it's like something just isn't sitting right with you. And so, and you have to be like, I think like taking care of yourself is also just like number one.
Yeah, I
Before
know
it.
there didn't Elaine have her thing for Neon Owl? The whole topic was mental
Oh
health like
yeah,
a few
mental
months back.
health, huge,
Yeah,
huge.
it's true. That's everyone can say, oh, it's whatever, but the music industry, as we know, this is going to be something that I think we can totally. I have to focus on what it would be, but yeah, because I do feel like I've always, that we as artists too and creatives, I do feel like we're a different kind of breed. That we in the space as music and creators. I'm sure people from outside of that, like one of my best friends is a scientist, can go, okay, I'm, sure you're special, you're unique, but you know what I mean? I mean, I do feel like it's a different thing that if you're not in that space, you don't really know what it's like, and you hear other events and all of us, because we all have to push so freaking hard. But yeah, like the vibe I got from doing that DJ mix last week and from all the stuff we talked about today, yeah, staying authentic and doing something that's really fun, something that grabs you. For example, I'm thinking I'm going to do a new column for Electrofans coming up. It's going to be called In the House. And I'm like,
Hmm.
one of the things I want to do is just whatever, just for fun, because house music is supposed to be fun and poppy and dancey. And the thing is, we kind of have to do the machinations, all the stuff. But it's the best thing is to just do that and get in the flow with it. But yeah, it's good to change it up and do something for fun. I know a
Totally.
lot of musicians have projects where maybe it's just more production or other things where it's just the vibe and the fun. Actually,
Yeah.
Lottery sounds like you guys actually had fun doing that, and it kind of
Oh yeah,
comes across as a great, cool, pumped up energy track too.
definitely. Yeah, I think the energy that you have when you're making it
Yeah,
definitely comes across, like,
yeah,
in the track itself. And like, not everything is, it's funny. Like, there's certain tracks that I spent so much time on.
yeah.
And there's some that like again I wrote the course in like 20 minutes, and even in some of the like collabs, and I think you
Hmm.
just start to learn. As I think both are equally valuable, by the way. I'm not saying like, oh, don't spend too much time on tracks, like, because I think that even if you like the track that you did in 20 minutes better than the one that you spent like 3 days on, like
For
it
years, right?
or years. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's all part of, like, everything is just data. And I think that's something too that I have to like remind myself. It's like there's no such thing as failure. It's just
Yeah,
feedback, you
that really
know?
is true. You learn by doing. Like I was saying, we had a glitchy start to the YouTube premiere. It was chopped. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh god! But then we picked it up, and not only did we pick it up, but we nailed the hell out of it, hit it out of the park, and it was like the best. It was great. It was a smashing success because you go with it. It's like you press play, you freaking press play. You keep. I think that's how you learn. Right?
That is
It's
how
like,
it is. And just like get throwing yourself in the fire. So
yeah,
yeah, so my advice is throw yourself in the fire and be patient at the same time. which I think
exactly.
is which
And
I think is what everything is. Yeah.
you're totally right about the whole like forest and trees thing and about the journey. And I know that could sound cheesy, but I've totally been realizing that even recently, and I know for the last few years, but even recently, like, sweating like the likes and you have so many followers, whatever, it's going to ebb and flow, but it's like, it is a thing over time. And it's like all of us, your own brand, the EL.SY brand, Electrofans, people are, thinking this is some cool stuff here. And it takes time. I know, you know, for sure. Yeah. So next thing, any upcoming plans that you like to share with us? And I know you have some stuff, musical pots, you got some stuff cooking in. So let's hear a
Yes,
little about that.
there's always something cooking.
EL.SY
Yeah,
upcoming
so
works.
yes. So let's see. I am working on a remix EP for the album, which is really exciting.
Oh,
So
wow. Now, is this going to be the mood? So you mentioned top of the
separate.
hour too. You have some mood EPs coming out. It's separate
Yes.
from that.
So
Okay.
Moody Peas is
Wow.
like my next LC. just like, yeah, the next, like, yeah, because I've pretty much put like all of the stuff that has come out this year has been collabs, and that was like what I
Okay.
wanted to do. So
Hmm.
definitely can expect some more collabs to come out, in various genres, but a lot of what I've been working on is dance. So what ended up happening is I wanted to do a remix EP for the album,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
so I ended up like through just like, communities on Instagram and whatnot, like I found some awesome producers and like, sent them stems, and like they made these awesome remixes. And so
Wow.
I'm still honestly trying to figure out how to release it, because I'm not, as much as like I have connections in the dance space, it's like still a whole other, I think that there's like, you know, I actually think there's like more options and opportunities, to be honest, in dance. But I'm just trying to figure out like
Hmm.
how to, I guess, approach that. And
Yeah, let me know if I can
so
help if you're looking for certain kind of
definitely,
type things, like if I can connect you with
yeah,
people, because as you know, I've got a lot of different tie-ins
yeah.
of connections through the Electrofans
Yeah, that
network.
would be
So
awesome. Yeah, and like, and
yeah.
yeah, I totally appreciate that. And like, because distribution wise, definitely some of the producers too are asking like, is this going to be a label release? And I'm like, because
Yeah, devil in the
yeah,
details. Totally. I know. I hear you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of releasing, it's definitely going to be an EP, but trying to just figure out the schedule. Like, am I going to do
Hmm.
singles? Am I going to repackage certain things? Like, you actually mentioned the Fast Life radio edit. I haven't officially put out that song. Like, I
Oh
only
wow.
send that to like radio station. Yeah, because like
Okay.
I just didn't find like a good time. It just felt awkward to drop the radio cut like randomly, and it's already been, I think, almost 2 years since I put out, or
Yeah,
like a
I
year
think I
and a
was
half since I
noticed
put out the
that.
single.
Hmm. And by
Yeah,
the way,
so
lottery, is that actually on a particular on a label, that release, or is it
yeah,
self release?
no, no. So yeah, and that's actually going to be a whole other remix EP that Origin Story is putting together. So just, yeah, people can expect a whole bunch of EPs.
Okay.
So remix
Actually,
EP.
label wise,
And
have you worked? Have you, is all your stuff as Wander, was that self released or was that on
yeah,
a specific label? It's self released. Okay.
self-release, yeah. So that's the other
Okay.
thing, is like for my next projects, like, I mean, again, I try not to like let those things hold back my releases, because I sort of just want
Hmm.
to get stuff out. But yeah, and when I started, I'm independent fully, and I
Cool.
sort of intended to do that. And but for sure in future, really, like I now really understand also the value of having a label, just doing it alone and
That's a
knowing what you can
huge
do
thing. I know. I've actually covered that,
alone.
some posts on the Electrofans blog and interviews
Yeah,
with a lot of producers who are going the self-release route. But of course, if you have a known label, you can go behind their brand too. That's a potential another topic for
yeah,
another individual
yeah. And
pro
I think,
talk too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think like having a specific release signed, like I don't know if I would. It'd have to be the right type of deal, because I'm always open.
Okay.
Like, there's never anything I'm like absolutely not. But I'm not really seeking to, because I think that's also a huge thing of like the old music model. It was like you have to get
Yeah.
signed, and so
Yeah, that's
now it's,
true. Yeah.
yeah, now it's not so much like that. And so like,
The
I
internet is really, I think, the delineating thing. I mean, Bandcamp, you
yeah,
can throw it up on Bandcamp.
oh totally,
You can
yeah.
just post your own, you have
I
your
mean,
own website,
DistroKid is what I use.
shealsy.com. Yeah. And just post
Totally,
on, and again, build your tribe on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,
totally.
TikTok nowadays. So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. And I
yeah.
think that that's like the thing I really want to like find a better way to really get connected to people who, because I still don't really know who is
Yeah.
listening, and and
Hmm.
so just like outreach. And I think, it doesn't have to be a label. There's so many like there's so many like artist services type companies that are popping up. And so yeah, just again continuing to explore. But yeah, for sure, I think with the remixes, with dance music in particular, I think getting a label behind it just makes a lot of sense. And so yeah, so there's those kind of things coming up. And then the moods EPs, that's something that I'm just sort of like that probably won't come out for like, I don't know, another year at least.
Okay. I'm
We'll
curious to
see.
hear that, how that
We'll
one's going to
see.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm trying to get, I'm trying to assemble some people to like work on that project with. So I am trying to
okay.
get demos that I like, the really rough demos done, and
Hmm.
then trying to like figure out how to like then it becomes like a project, right? Like the project management aspect of it. So those are, I would say, like the big sort of upcoming things. And then yeah, there's probably gonna be a couple other singles as well that come out,
Okay.
like collaborative things that I've been working on. But um yeah, so still busy. Like it's strange. I still feel like there's so much going on, even though
I
yeah.
know. Yeah.
But yeah.
Constantly. You have to pick and choose sometimes. Yeah, I know. So yeah, speaking of collabs, I was going to play a quick snippet here of this is Lottery with EL.SY and the Q Narangwate, I think is remix.
Mhm.
He's a Thai. I've heard of him
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Singer Meanwhile Bravebird has been kind of an important part of the Electrofans network. She's from Japan some time ago. She's done some pretty big collabs with Q Narangwate, a
Oh, that's
Thai
awesome.
DJ.
Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
let's spin this for a second here and see you guys think of it. I think this is a really cool. So this is like a deep house rework of the track Lottery from EL.SY.
Yes.
Q Narangwate DJ, a Thai DJ. Yeah, the transformation in this, I was like, whoa, you really took this and sunk it way like deep, 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 sub deep for this remix.
I love it. Yeah.
Sounds like we're just sending in a sub too, actually. And this was just out like a couple months ago. Was this on a label? This is
Was
independently
I
released
don't
too,
yeah,
right?
this was also actually I don't it may have there was a bit more support, I think, potentially with this one behind the scenes, but I still think it was like pretty independent. Like distribution wise, I think we had some help, but um
You can
yeah, but
really
yeah,
see.
again,
Mhm.
I'm not handling that, thankfully, for this.
Okay.
For this, yeah, that's all origin story. But
Okay.
yeah, but with this one we had a little bit more. And then
Because I was going to say I
yesterday,
can really see this as you know, I know at the moment literally clubs are starting where areas where it's
yes,
safe. This is
finally.
very like a club ready mix. I mean, the original of Lottery I think is really hot track, the clubby friendly, but this is really like maybe more like you're into the zone, into the mix like later in the evening show after hours, like
Exactly.
kind of
Yes, after
deep
hours.
remix, like the breakout room in the club sort of thing.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, that's definitely the vision for that one. And then there's this remix. Yesterday, actually, we released another remix with an
Really,
Italian producer DJ, and
man,
his name is David Gum, like
I
two
gotta
M.
I gotta hear that one. Yeah, definitely
Yeah,
check that
definitely
one
check
out.
that one out. That one dropped yesterday, and it's like a
Wow.
gosh, how do I describe, it's like really, yeah, he did a lot with it's actually a lot of the chorus, kind of like um I'm obsessed with the intro because he did a lot of gosh, what's the term for this, like he did a lot of like pitch bend type
Uh-huh.
of vocal chop effects.
So this is another
uh
rework of Lottery by this Italian DJ then, huh?
yes, yes.
Wow.
I wonder if it's on SoundCloud.
Cool.
I feel like we need to make sure it's on SoundCloud if it's not,
And by the way,
but it's
everybody too,
definitely on Sound.
I'm
It's on
gonna put up a
Spotify.
write up, and we're gonna put this on the Electrofans YouTube, and I'm gonna put up a write up with a lot of links to. In addition to this interview, we'll finalize the URL, but on electrofans.com website too. Yeah, so you can
Awesome.
check out some of these links. And Lily, you can send me some of these. I can kind of call the rest of these together. I have some, but I can put, assemble all the links together and, you know, put this in a feature EL.SY write up too, along with this interview. Yeah. This is
That
going to
would
be
be
neat
that would be
stuff.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Okay.
would be
So we got some
amazing.
collabs,
Yes.
the Moods EP and another second album coming up. So yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff to look forward to. Yeah.
Lots, yep, lots of stuff. And then yeah, I think just like really the main thing too is for me trying to figure out the visual side of it, because
Okay.
up until now I haven't really done, music videos. My
Oh, okay.
photos are
Hmm.
actually, yeah, that definitely like use the headshot you got of me, but like at some point down the road, now that things are open back up, I'm like new photo, like those photos are honestly, they're like
I
over
hear you there.
professional,
Again, isn't it the perfection?
crazy.
Because last night I was saying, I was zooming with my friend to do some testing for this, and she suggested, "Oh, not this photo. Try a different photo."
Yeah.
The whole thing about I totally hear you. The perfectionism thing. I know it's
Yeah, well,
like,
this is like beyond that because
oh yeah.
that was like, yeah, again, like over 5 years ago, I think,
Hmm.
that we took those. So it's like it's almost just like a misrepresentation
Yeah, you kind of
of
do want to
like who
keep
I
up
am.
update stuff
Yeah.
every so
Yeah,
often.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I know that people have certainly um kept things up for quite a long time too in the past. But yeah, that's like, you know, I would say that that sort of stuff takes a long time and a lot of effort. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like everything. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so for the interview part of the EL.SY interview again, thanks. I think we'll wrap it up. So yeah, again, thank you so much, Lily, for becoming joining us today, being our very first guest number one on this new Electrofans Pro Talk series. And once again, this is going to be an ongoing series of combination of interviews and think tank discussions with movers and shakers from around the electronic music world, promoters, DJs, producers, singer-songwriters, event promoters, so organizers. So yeah, um, really appreciate it. Thanks a million, EL.SY, for checking out, and check out more of EL.SY music at sheiselsy.com. That's EL.SY. And like I say, also, we're going to be putting a write-up of this URL page address forthcoming on the electrofans.com domain blog. So look forward to that soon as well. So yeah, awesome. Thank you again, EL.SY, and we look forward to checking out your next upcoming works. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. Thanks to Electrofans.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.